We took 39 people here from the church this year. 39, that's right. And so there's a lot. Let's start off with things that are most important that we haven't talked about yet, okay? If you're thinking to yourself, how does DeLong do it? 39 people, the management, all of it's too much. It's because DeLong doesn't do it, okay? Mike Oskopinski does all the administration of the pit. I think that everybody who's been on a Honduras trip widely agrees that we couldn't do it without Mike or somebody equally talented in that position, and I'm not sure who that would be except for Mike, right? Are you with me? All right, so big thanks to Mike. As we get going, yeah, that's good. I appreciate that, thank you. As we get going, how many trips have you been on?
I think this is either my fourth or fifth trip. Yeah.
Fourth or fifth trip, okay, that's good. What is it for somebody like you who's gone on many trips, and I think I had some people on this trip that's been on like 10 plus trips for this work that we've been doing. What is it that you're like, oh yeah, let's get back down there and do some mission work this year? What is it for you that brings you back again and again?
I think that it's seeing the mission through the eyes of the first timers.
Okay.
It's really a drive for me. Going down there, appreciating what we have here because they have nothing there.
Yeah.
Doing the manual labor. This is not like an evangelistic mission where you like, my husband said, you hand out cheese sandwiches and pray. Like that's not at all what we do. So I think that's also something that really is a desire for me. Manual labor, really putting in the work, sweat, the tears, bonding with all the people around you that, just creates this like energy and this mission to complete something that you just, like Tito said earlier, you just don't even think that you're going to be a part of, and then you see it, and you see it grow, and you see it being from before, and being able to see kids on the orphanage, and I think that's like a goal, and that's what drives you to do it over and over again.
That's awesome. I think it begs the question with 39 people. Anybody would worry that like, oh man, it's a wide age range. It's a wide like swath of the church. It's pretty diverse when it comes to like walks of life. And I think the assumption from anybody looking in would be, ooh, this seems like a recipe for disaster, right? But how does it all, like for you, are you surprised as I am that it all tends to work out?
I was a little nervous about 49 people because I think like the most we've ever brought was 24.
Yeah, something like that.
And it's all because of the Lord that we have all been safe.
Yeah.
Nothing ever traumatic has happened.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, I am really surprised. And Mike Oskopinski has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Because it's so organized and structured, he eliminates any question. It really, there's a lot of balance. So no, I'm totally shocked, but it was amazing.
When you're there, the mission goal is we're basically carving this place out of the jungle. We're building this is one of a couple buildings that we're building on this site, 6,000 square foot children's home. And so that obviously that's the goal, right? But this kind of secondary kind of undercurrent to the story is that you're on this trip with a bunch of people you go to church with, and you're spending like this buku amount of time together, and you're making new relationships. Like, what sticks out to you in that? Like, did you find somebody you connected with on this trip that was like new to you that you were like, oh man, I don't even really know this person, but.
I did. I actually, it's so weird. The world is so small. But Tito's story really, like, kind of.
Tell it. As best you can. I'll tell you some of it. Okay. There you go. So we were telling in first service, Tito's one of the guys on the trip, first time on the trip, and a couple years back here, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Tito had an aneurysm and ended up in the ER where Casey's husband, Danny, works. And Danny was his ER doctor in the ER. Right, and then they're on this trip together. They're like, oh.
And I didn't know at all until he came up to me and was like, hey, it's so nice to meet you. You're Danny's wife. I'm like, yeah. And
Who are you?
And he's like, I'm so thankful that you guys are here, like you're the medical team, whatever. But he was just telling me, like, oh, Danny was my doctor. I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
Such a small world. God is so good.
Yeah.
You know, like he was able 2 years ago in the ICU with a brain aneurysm, and now here, able to participate in this beautiful thing that we're doing in Honduras with the people that took care of him. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
God is good.
Yeah. So, first timer. Yeah. All right. Were you surprised at the level of work that it takes that we're actually doing? Like, or were you thinking to yourself, I've seen some of these pictures, surely this is just like for show, but are you surprised at the level of physical labor that takes place on the trip?
My brother went last year, so
Yeah.
he kind of prepared me. So I kind of already knew there was going to be a lot of work, but I mean, the most surprising part was just like the level of poverty that I saw.
Yeah.
That was shocking.
Yeah.
And the feeding stations
Yeah.
were very, very impactful.
Yeah.
I could feed all day, honestly. I could just stay. When I was doing that, I wasn't hungry. I was like, I could
Yeah.
just go for hours.
Yeah.
The amount of need that those kids need.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, I think this happened for me on the trip. John and I had a moment on the site. John and I have lots of moments. He's my Honduras boyfriend. Yes, you are. Okay. We had a moment where both of us looked at each other on the site this year, and, you know, this happens in everyone's life. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, it will. But at some point, for some people, it's different ages, right? For John and I, it's the 40s, where you look at each other and say, I cannot do what I used to be able to do anymore, right? And this is I said to him, I said, do you agree this is the first year you really felt that sense of like, I feel old. I feel very old, you know what I'm saying? And all that to say, there was big portions of time where we were doing a lot of dirt work this year, digging for the septic, digging for the plumbing, digging to get the steps in and the ramp in and all this stuff. There were times for large swaths of each day that 25 shovels were going every minute of every day, right? And we looked around. This is one of the first years we've ever taken a group that had this wide of an age range. And we looked around. We had a whole van this year of people. That's 15 people under 25, right? Yeah. What's up? What's up? My eldest son was the van driver. If that wasn't insane, leaving him in charge of them, but whatever. But we looked around, and I said to John, I don't think we could have done this without them. We couldn't have done it. A lot of time. To be very honest with you, the trip is stressful. The trip takes a lot out of you. You're hot, you're tired, you're exhausted. And sometimes we worry that taking teenagers or young people on the trip, that they're going to not be focused enough and become a distraction. That was not the case. We had would you agree? Like all these guys were like worked their butts off. And I looked at John and said, there's no way we could have done this without them. We wouldn't have got half of this done without them.
Did a great job.
Yeah, great job, Layla. Way to bring it. So how was your van ride experience? Was it as good as ours?
Yes, actually. Shout out to Ethan for driving all of us. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun getting to know everybody.
Yeah, because you had new people you get to know too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and were you surprised at the level of like the level of work that went into it? Were you?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I was trying to expect okay, we're gonna have to do a lot of work, but the first day I was sick and I was trying to work, and Casey was like, "Girl, get in the van, calm down. Like we have other workers."
Yeah.
But after that, I felt like everyone got a good routine and was like able to take breaks and go back and like give each other turns.
Yeah.
And that was good.
When we're down there and there's all this stuff going on, do you notice that Mike packs a lot into a day? So it's like we're moving from get up, breakfast, work, feeding station, work, block party, work. It's like boom, boom, boom. There's not a lot of except for this one moment before dinner where you can take a breath, where it's like you're packing a tremendous amount into a day, right? Then you come home How was your experience coming home? Did you have
Like
a
to
sense?
hear?
Yeah, to hear. How was your
The
experience?
first night I got home, I was like crying.
Yeah.
Like, a lot, because I told my mom, I was like, I almost felt selfish coming back home to like such a nice place, such like a nice house.
As you should.
AC in the house. And I was like, oh my God, these poor kids. Like, but I was sad and took a lot to like process, like, this is my life, and then they're still living that life
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, I think there is an adjustment that takes place. But for veterans that have been on the trip, maybe you don't sense as much as you did the first time, but there is this adjustment that comes back. Did you experience that?
Yeah, for sure. I go to work the next day, so.
How was that? How was that?
It was bad.
Yeah.
I was like kind of crying at work.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to tell my coworkers, hey, I just experienced something that was like life changing for me.
Yeah.
So it was hard to just be there and like trying to talk to them, and they're like kind of worried about their own lives and like stuff that's happening
Yeah.
and stuff. And I was like, you don't understand what I just saw.
Yeah.
It's like a different world. Like the time passes by differently there.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like we're there for it was 8 days, but it felt like a month. I don't know if you felt that way, but
Yeah.
For me, it just felt like we're just in a whole other world.
We were talking about it before first service. So much happens that you're like, how did all that happen in that short amount of time? Because it felt like it feels like these days are longer. There's a weird dynamic to it where you're exhausted. You're doing more than you would normally do. You're pressing your body, your mind to go further than it normally would. Yet there's this sense of like, it's as much as it is like a shock to the system, it's almost like a utopia feeling of like, I don't want to overstate it. I don't want to super spiritualize it, but it's almost like, man, I was meant to do something like this. There's this feeling of like, oh, there's more to life than just my mundane routine. There's a thing out here that's bigger than me, and to be a part of that even for a moment feels very rewarding. Did you sense that too?
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back right now, honestly. Like, I was looking at apartments. I'm at work, like, looking at...
Maybe I'll just move.
$100 for, like, a 3-bedroom apartment.
That is incredible, sir. That is incredible. When you come back, I think that what ends up happening is after a day or two, so much has happened that the memories kind of shift down, settle down, so to speak, and something always sticks out, right? That's bigger and grander, and maybe it's a theme or an idea or a moment or a person. Did that happen for you? Did you have something that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I've been there many, many times before, but it's been a little while since I went, and when we went to the feeding station for the first time, and the kids had the bienvenidos.
Yeah. Yeah, we pulled up to
Man
the...
down.
Yeah.
For sure.
So real quick, just as an explanation, there are a couple of different areas. So we have a couple friends there on the ground that go to a local church there on the ground, and they have identified, these friends of ours have identified under-resourced areas in their area, which I can't tell you how exponentially crazy that is for an American, because when we show up, everybody is underprivileged. And then this group who lives in this town is like, no, this is the place where there's really people hurting, right? And so we put a feeding station in these areas. These girls from this church feed every day. A lot of that happens through donations that you make. And so they feed every day. When we showed up this time, all the kids were out front with a sign welcoming us. You know what I'm saying? And it was quite the moment, right? Yeah. So, okay, that's a great memory. That is a great memory. How about you? Did anything stick out to you?
I mean, I had multiple times. It's hard to just pick like one or a few. But,
Right.
I agree. The first one was very impactful because that was the first one we're feeding them at, and that was just like a little bit shocking.
Yeah.
And then when you all told me that was the best one, I was like, okay, I'm gonna experience some stuff here.
Yeah.
And then like all the other feeding stations, the hospital that we went to, that was extremely shocking.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the only thing that's spurred me from flying back there and just living there is just the hospital.
Yeah.
You do not want to get sick or hurt there.
Yeah.
It's bad.
When he says the best one, he means that when the group shows up to the first feeding station, they're like, pace yourself, it's going to get worse from here, right? Like this is pretty good compared to the next one we're going to. So that was pretty shocking for a first time. How about you? Memory from the trip. Thing that sticks out the most.
My favorite memory is when we were at this feeding station
Okay.
Soccer
Yeah.
night, and we had extra food, so I asked Kelly if we could go like down the street and give it to the other
Yeah.
families. And I had given it to one of these little boys, and he like stopped. Like his family kept walking, he stopped. He was like, in English, he was like, "I love you so much, thank you." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna give you more food." But that's the thing that stuck out. All the kids were just so nice and like grateful for anything, just like our presence. So.
Yeah. We showed up, and that night we hosted like a communal gathering. So if you can imagine this feeding station that sits in this neighborhood that's really underserviced to the point where many of the kids that live in this area are getting one meal a day, tops, so a lot of malnutrition and stuff. And when we jumped in there, we always bring a soccer ball, and they have a little soccer area, and we played a game of soccer. And then some of the locals there beat us in a game of soccer, so that was exciting. But it was a great night, and we usually bring glow sticks and all this kind of stuff. And if you can imagine it being like such a communal event that everybody for probably a 10-block radius comes out. And I mean, we brought in a little DJ this year. We brought a guy with a little sound system. He was playing music and making fun of us, and just, it's quite a night, And then the guys found fireworks, so that was great. Nobody got too injured, right? That's always a good time.
I make sure to buy extra food, a lot of times the mothers don't get to be fed while we're there to feed all the kids, because there's like hundreds and hundreds of kids. So
Yeah.
we're feeding all these kids, and you look around the perimeter, you see like the adults, a lot of mothers, like they're pregnant and they're not being fed. So like I couldn't see that. So I went and bought a bunch of food and make sure all the mothers got fed.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of food, and it was so cheap. I mean, I went to every single stall down our block, and I just bought all the food on every single stall, like all the fruits and everything.
Yeah, I do have to say, yeah, that's beautiful. I just saw a picture of Ray. I do have to say this. We had a bet that Ray wouldn't make his connecting flight. He did. I'd like to say publicly that I was wrong and that Ray was right. Okay, there he is. God bless him. All right, y'all give these guys a big round of applause. Give them, thank you. Thank you, guys. Take them with you. Okay, real quick. Quick devotional thought, okay? I asked them their best memory from the trip or their most impactful memory from the trip. I'll give you mine. We've partnered. It is not our goal to run a children's home or an orphanage there on the ground. We've partnered with a local doctor in the area to do that. So our role in this mission is really the infrastructure role, is to build out this site. This year, the Vine Church, just the construction portion of the budget, you pumped in $40,000 of construction work that went into this. That's not people going on the trip. That's not people airfare. That's just the work that you put into the actual structure. That's good stuff. It was funny because this year, one of the things that we wanted to get accomplished that we didn't want our group to do, but we wanted to pay for, was the roof and the roof structure to the building. It's about a 6,000 square foot building, if anybody knows anything about construction. And we had a little miscommunication, a miscue. Sometimes that happens, especially if I'm talking. But that happens in Honduras. And this year we had a miscue because we had budgeted around $5,000 for this roof. And if you're in construction, you're like, well, that was stupid. But, imagine that we were just going on what we thought we were being told. Turned out the roof was a lot more expensive. And we were about $10,000 out of budget at that point, to which we got the group together and we said, hey, we're not asking for any more money from you. We know you're down here, giving your all and working hard and all that kind of stuff, but we'd love to hijack your social media and ask for small donations. We did, and in like 2 days, 48 hours, you guys raised $10,000 in 48 hours for that. That was great. Good stuff. Love that. But the thing that sticks out to me is we've partnered with this doctor because after the infrastructure's done, we're on to another building probably, but after the infrastructure is done, then the actual administration of the site takes place. So children come into that site, they have to be cared for, they have to be educated, they have to be provided for. And this doctor that we have, he has a charity umbrella that oversees that and does that and manages that. He's got other sites down there that we visit when we're down there. And this time we visited one of those sites. And when we were there, the thing that stuck out, that was my most impactful memory, was that when we got to that site, there's a little boy on that site whose name is Jose. Jose's 6 years old. I think it had a place, it connected with me emotionally just because I have a 6-year-old. And little Jose could not talk, could not walk, could not soothe himself, could not feed himself, right? Now he's 6, he has no disease. That's just neglect. I want you to imagine a world where a kid could get to 6 years old and not be able to feed himself, soothe himself, walk, or talk. That is wild. The level of darkness that does exist in the world appears to be endless. And it could be, if you were confronted with it, you could understand how people could become easily cynical at the level of brokenness that exists in the world. Over the summer months here at the church, we've been in a series called All Eyes on Jesus, and we've been taking a look at the Sermon on the Mount. And in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says these words in Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. He says, you are the light of the world. He says, a city set in a hill cannot be hidden. He says, no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. You are the light of the world. And here's the thing. As I was coming back and thinking through this experience that I had with Jose and the experiences that I had on the trip and the connections that get made and all the work that gets done, and I was trying to think, okay, what are we really wanting to express from a sense of like what God's doing? And I would argue it's this. If you kind of have leaned in or have become, it's passed through your mind, or you've become a little like hopeless or a little cynical in the way the world is, I think the question that I always get as a pastor is I always get somebody who will say, well, what could I really do? What could I really do to change the situation? It's too big. The problem's too big. The world's too big. The brokenness is too broken. The darkness is too dark. It's never ending. Even Jesus says, you'll always have the poor. The poor is always going to be there. It's not like we're going to solve poverty around the world. And it's not like we can fix some of the level and degrees of brokenness that we are confronted by. And so it's easy to become jaded. And so what could I really do? And with that question, it's loaded because people are typically saying, I'm not a pastor. I'm not a minister. I'm not a missionary, right? What could I really do? I'm not going on this trip. I'm not going wherever you tell me to go. I'm not even serving down at the homeless station here. What could I really do to change brokenness or darkness of the world? Because the brokenness and darkness doesn't just exist over there, it exists everywhere. And you're going to go into places this week where there's people that are hurting and broken and feeling lost, and there's going to be real spiritual lostness. So what can I really do? Take a look at these words one more time. I think they're powerful. Jesus says, you are the light of the world. In places of darkness, in places of brokenness, in places where it feels like there's no winning, he says, you're the light of the world. Notice what he doesn't say. And I think this is telling about the way we read the scripture sometimes. He doesn't say you're a lamp. He does illustrate with the lamp, but he doesn't say you're a lamp, right? He doesn't say you're the lamp of the world. He says you are the light of the world. He does go on to say no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. They put it on a table to light the whole house. And I point that out to you just to say, notice that Jesus is saying the lamp is really a means to an end. You're the light of the world. Some of us look at our life and we're like, well, I'm called to be a teacher. I'm called to be a doctor or a business worker or a healthcare worker or a business owner or an artist or a builder, or I'm a student. What could I really do? Well, all of those, I know we say called, but all of those are not really the calling of a Christian. They're not a calling of the follower of Jesus. All of these are the means to an end. Hear me, look at me clearly. Your calling is to be the light of the world. It doesn't stop or change or get rearranged depending on your age, the season that you're in, the job that you have, the place where God has put you. Your calling is to be the light of the world. That's the end. The means to that end is he may use your vocation or your place or your wealth or your education, whatever it is. He may use that in that placement for you to be the light, but you are the light of the world. That is what God's saying. The world is broken and in decay. It's dipping deeper and deeper into darkness, and you've been invited into the redemption plan that God is doing in the world to be a little light in dark places. You go, man, it just feels so overwhelming. I just don't know how we'd make an impact. It just feels like there's so much darkness. And I say the same thing to everyone who ever asks me that question. I say, do for that one what you wish you could do for everyone and watch the world change. Just do for one what you wish you could do for everyone and watch the world change. You're the light of the world. So you may say to yourself, I'm not a missionary, I'm not a pastor, I'm not this. Don't ordain me, I'm not ready for that. You're going to go back out into the world. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're going back out into a broken world this week, starting Monday, with coworkers or friends or family or whatever it is. And it's going to be dark in some places. Somebody's going to be experiencing that darkness. You may be an instructor, a teacher, a boss, a coworker, whatever it is. I promise you, you're still the light of the world in that place. You don't have to go halfway around the world to be the light of the world. You're the light of the world today, the light of the world in your family, the light of the world in your job, at your house. That's your calling. Don't get your calling, true calling to be the light of the world confused with the means to the end of your calling, which may be your vocation, okay? Stop doing that. Let's just get clear on what God's asking us to do, this simple truth. Go out and be a blessing and light in darkness. That's what God's calling us into. So what could you really do? What could you really do? A whole lot. You could really do a whole lot. You may never go on this trip, but you're going back to work on Monday. And I bet, I'm just betting, my guess is I'm betting that even as I say these words, God is bringing someone to mind in your life that you can be light to. That you can be light to. It may be a child. It may be an adult. It may be a spouse. It may be a friend. It may be whoever it is that you can be the light to. Leave this place. Know that you're called to be the light. Go out and be world changers. Are you with me? Bow your heads, close your eyes. Let me pray for you. Father, we ask your blessing upon this quiet moment before you, that you'd impress in our hearts all that you can and will do in this world, and some of it will be through us. Father, take what little we have, what little broken means that we can muster, and bless it in your name. Would you prepare your heart to take communion and remember his sacrifice?